What was Britain like before the monarchy? Everyone knows the history of Britain under the monarchy. But what if I told you that it was once ruled by tribes who nailed skulls to their doors? Or that the Vikings almost burned England to the ground? Or that there was even a plague that almost wiped out Britain as we know it today? The Tribal Age, from 800 BC to 43 AD. We start by going back in time when warriors rode into battle naked, covered in blue paint, screaming. When they won the battle, they cut off the enemy's head and nailed it to their door. This was Britain before Rome. There was no Great Britain, no England, no central government. Just dozens of tribes scattered across the island, each ruled by chieftains who answered to no one. The Iceni controlled the east, the Brigantes held the north, the Catalavani dominated the Midlands, and the Silures raided from Wales. None of them considered themselves part of the same country. Children weren't raised by their parents because at 7 years old, they were sent to live with allied tribes as hostages. But they called it education. If your father broke a deal, you didn't come home. They built over 2,000 hill forts across Britain. Maiden Castle in Dorset had walls 40 feet high and ditches 60 feet deep. But here's the thing. These weren't built to stop foreign invaders. They were built to stop the tribe next door. Druids sat at the top of society as priests, judges, doctors, and advisors. They performed sacrifices, settled disputes, and kept laws that were never written down. 20 years of training to join their ranks, and they could stop a battle just by walking between the armies. They had iron weapons, gold jewelry, and trade routes reaching Greece and Rome. They exported tin, lead, and hunting dogs while importing wine and olive oil. Civilization should have been unstoppable, but it wasn't because there was one fatal flaw. When Julius Caesar raided in 55 BC, the tribes didn't unite. Some fought him, some welcomed him, and some just watched their neighbors burn. When Claudius sent 40,000 soldiers in 43 AD, there was no British army, just tribes who hated their neighbor more than the invaders. Why did Rome win so easily? They didn't have to divide and conquer. Rome just showed up. Britain fell in less than 40 years. The Celts couldn't unite against each other. They definitely couldn't unite against Rome, and just like that, Rome was about to remake Britain in its own image. Roman occupation, from 43 AD to 410 AD. In 43 AD, 40,000 Roman soldiers landed on the south coast, but within a generation, they controlled most of the island, but not everyone accepted it. In 60 AD, a woman named Boudica watched Roman soldiers flog her and take her daughters, with her crime being the expectation to keep her dead husband's kingdom as she was queen of the ancient British Iceni tribe. In defiance, she burned 3 cities to the ground, with 80,000 dying before the legions crushed her rebellion. After that, resistance ended. Britain belonged to Rome. The Romans built cities with bathhouses, theaters, and heated floors. London grew to 60,000 people. Latin became the language of power, and if you wanted to get anywhere, you learned to act Roman. But most people didn't. Outside the cities, Celtic farmers still lived in round huts and spoke the same language their grandparents had. Roman soldiers marched past on stone roads, but the farmers didn't care, so the Roman Emperor Hadrian built a wall in 122 AD. 80 miles of stone, not to keep invaders out, but to mark where Rome stopped trying. For 3.5 centuries, this system worked, but it created a problem. Britain forgot how to run itself. Towns didn't mint their own coins, didn't train their own soldiers, and didn't even repair their own roads. Everything depended on Rome. But by 400 AD, the empire was dying. Soldiers hadn't been paid in years, tax collectors stopped coming, and in 410 AD, Rome pulled out. The legions left, the money stopped, the officials went home. Britain had no leaders left, no armies, and no one who knew how to run things. Everyone assumes what came next was chaos, total collapse, barbarians overrunning everything. But that's not exactly what happened. The Dark Ages, from 410 AD to 600 AD. The story goes like this. Rome left, civilization collapsed, and Britain fell into chaos. Savage hordes, burning cities, knowledge lost forever. 4 centuries of darkness. Wrong. The real collapse came 150 years later, and it arrived on a ship carrying rats. First, what actually happened when Rome left? After Rome left, Britons were making more metal than ever. More iron, more bronze, more lead. For 150 years, trade continued, towns survived, the economy grew. Britain proved it didn't need Rome. But in 544 AD, ships arrived from the Mediterranean. On those ships were rats. On those rats were fleas. In those fleas was plague. The plague of Justinian had already killed 25 million people, and now it reached Britain. Black swellings in the neck and armpits, fever, vomiting blood, and dead within days. No medicine, no idea what was happening. People just started dying. A few decades later, the population had dropped by half. Maybe 1.5 million dead, maybe 3 million as villages emptied and fields went unplanted. The economy that had survived Rome finally broke. The Dark Ages didn't start in 410 AD. They started around 550 AD, not caused by barbarians, but caused by disease. And what came out of the plague was something new. The old tribal lines were gone. The Roman system was gone. Whoever could gather fighters and hold land became king. No palaces, no crowns. Just men with swords who could protect a village or burn the next one down. Britain broke apart in dozens of small kingdoms, each fighting to survive, meaning the plague did what Rome couldn't. It destroyed Britain completely. But from the ashes, something else would rise. 7 kingdoms that would fight for 300 years. The Heptarchy, from 600 AD to 927 AD. By 600 AD, the chaos had settled into a pattern. 7 kingdoms controlled most of Britain. Northumbria in the north, Mercia in the Midlands, East Anglia in the east, Essex, Kent, and Sussex in the south, Wessex in the southwest. They fought constantly. Borders shifted every generation. A kingdom that dominated one century might be a smoking ruin the next. Kings weren't born, they were chosen. A council of nobles, bishops, and landowners picked who ruled. Not the eldest son and not the previous king's favorite. But whoever thought they could do the job, bad king. The council removed him. Weak king? They'd find someone stronger. The crown was earned and it could be taken away. Every person had a price. Kill a peasant, pay his family a few shillings. Kill a nobleman, pay hundreds. Kill a king, and the price was beyond what most men could earn in a lifetime. This wasn't justice, it was math. Violence had a cost, and everyone knew what it was. Sometimes one king grew powerful enough to dominate the others. It meant nothing permanent, just temporary power that lasted until he died or someone stronger came along. Then the Vikings arrived in 793 AD at the Lindisfarne Monastery, the holiest site in northern England. Norsemen came ashore, killed the monks, and took everything valuable. The Anglo-Saxons had never seen anything like it. Within decades, the Vikings had conquered Northumbria, East Anglia, and half of Mercia. English kingdoms fell one by one, and by 878 AD, only Wessex remained with its king hiding in a swamp. Defeated, hunted, and with only a handful of followers left, his name was Alfred. But somehow he fought back, rebuilt his army, and pushed the Vikings to a standstill. He built fortified towns, created a navy, but he couldn't finish the job. But he set the stage for those who could. His daughter Ethelflaed led armies into Viking territory and took it piece by piece, and his grandson would finish what Alfred started. From 7 kingdoms fighting each other, one family rose and one man would unite them all. The Unification, 927 AD. Athelstan wasn't supposed to be king. His mother was a mistress, not a queen, and when his father Edward died in 924 AD, the legitimate sons came first. But they died. Athelstan didn't. He had spent his childhood at the court of his aunt Ethelflaed, learning how to fight and how to wait, so by the time the crown reached him, he was ready. But one problem remained. The Vikings still held York. For a century, Northumbria had been a Viking kingdom. Danish kings ruled from York, while Wessex grew stronger in the south. This meant that 2 Englands existed and one had to destroy the other. In 926 AD, Aethelstan married his sister to Sidric, the Viking king of York, to create an alliance through blood, but Sidric died a year later. His sons expected to inherit, but Aethelstan moved faster. He marched north, seized York, and threw Sidric's heir out of the country. The last Viking in England fell without a battle. After this, on July 12, 927 AD, he called a meeting at Amontbridge in Cumbria. The kings of Scotland, Wales, and Strathclyde came, but they didn't come to fight. They came to kneel. Every ruler in Britain submitted to one man, something that never happened before. But 10 years later, they regretted kneeling in 937 AD. At Brunanburh, a coalition of Scots, Vikings, and Irish marched south to destroy Athelstan and split England back into pieces with the largest army Britain had seen in centuries. Athelstan met them in the field. The battle lasted from dawn until sunset, and by the end, 5 kings lay dead. 7 earls, thousands of soldiers, and the coalition was destroyed, as Athelstan was victorious. No one challenged him again. He minted new coins that read Rex Anglorum, King of the English, not Wessex, not the Anglo-Saxons, the English. England wasn't just born, it was paid for in blood. But Athelstan died in 939 AD, and Vikings retook York within months. The North was lost again for the next 50 years. Borders collapsed, kings were murdered, and Danish warlords ruled from London. But the idea survived. One kingdom, one crown, because 139 years later, a Norman duke crossed the channel and stole the story, and 1066 became the date everyone remembers. 2,000 years to build a country, 139 years for someone else to take the credit. But now if you want to see another video, click the one on screen now, and subscribe too.